Hello, Hey Boomer listeners. I'm your host, Wendy Green, and I'm really looking forward to the show today. We're going to be talking about intuitives and empaths and spiritual guides. And to be very honest with you, that is not something I know a lot about. So I'm looking forward to learning from our guest, Michele Sammons. And, as part of the Hey Boomer community, we are all about learning and growing and exploring new ideas. So this should be a really interesting show. It is so great to be back with you all. It was lovely to take July off. I got to spend time with my kids and with my grandkids. I took a trip to Yosemite National Park, which was incredibly hot and stupendously gorgeous. And it was time to spend with my boyfriend, which was really nice. I've also been thinking about ways to change up and make some improvements to Hey Boomer. So one of them, you see, I'm in a different setting today. I think the light is brighter in here. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about this setting as opposed to where I've had the last two seasons. And I wanted to say, first of all, how much I love Hey Boomer. I love the new friendships it has brought me. I love what we're learning, the sharing, the building a community. And it's time for Hey Boomer to start making a little income. So one of the ways we're going to do that is by bringing on some sponsors. And I have a sponsor today. My new sponsor is doTERRA, which is an essential oils company. And I wasn't familiar with doTERRA until, 4 to 6 weeks ago when I was introduced to it because I have had stomach issues most of my life and have been on antacid, reflux medicine probably for 30 years. And every time you get that refilled, the little insert, it says, you should only take this for a short amount of time. Don't keep using it forever and ever and ever. Well, I've been using it forever and ever and ever. But doTERRA, besides their essential oils, also has products for digestion and probiotics and things like that. So I was interested in trying it. I started using them about 4 weeks ago, along with their vitamins. And I have to tell you, I have not had to take a reflux pill in like 4 weeks. It's amazing. I'm so pleased with the product. And Heidi Woody is my doTERRA wellness advocate. And she is wonderful. She is committed to educating you about all the different oils and the products and committed to providing ways to improve your lifelong health. She really, really studies and wants to know as much as she can. And I feel extremely comfortable recommending her to you. You can reach Heidi, text her at 864-238-8120. I'm going to put that in, 864-238-8120. So that you can text her and ask her any questions and learn more about the doTERRA oils, the doTERRA wellness supplements, and all of the ways that you might be able to improve your lifelong health. So, that's Michele's stuff. So I want to bring in our guest today, Michele Sammons. Hi, Michele.
How are you?
I am
Thank
good.
you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm really happy that you're here.
Yeah, me too. This is going to be delightful.
It's going to be fun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Michele is an inspirational author, a spiritual teacher, and a highly attuned guide who works with clients worldwide, helping them transform their lives through divine guidance. As an empath and intuitive, Michele's lighthearted, joyful approach embraces her clients right where they are on their spiritual path, and gently guides them to personal clarity and understanding. Michele is passionate about working with spirit to uplift others while spreading joy and love along the way. And Michele is the author of this book, The Little Book of Big Knowing, which we will talk about, and I want to share some with you. But it's tiny bursts of insight to wake up your soul. So, Michele, I know, there's so many questions I have, but first, let's start by getting to know you a little bit. Like, where were you before you started on this journey, and what brought you to working with spirit and being an intuitive?
Yeah, so gosh, my journey began probably 10, 12 years ago now, where I was living a regular life like everybody else and had, a great husband and a lovely job and, fantastic vacations, all the things that we like to enjoy. And I just started to notice that something was missing. And I really went deep within and couldn't figure out what it was. And it didn't feel like it was any of these outside circumstances that were off, but there was something inside that was off.
Mm-hmm.
So it really began my journey of searching and seeking and exploring traditional religions, non-traditional religions, meditation, all sorts of things. And throughout that journey, what I discovered was not only this spiritual side of me, but all of these wonderful gifts and skills that I have that I didn't realize I had because I was living in mainstream America and was not ever taught to really explore those or to know what they were or to understand them deeply or how they're so beneficial to everyone. So I went on a long path and a journey of exploring all of those good things, and then slowly started sharing them with other folks. I was very shy about it at first, and started with family and friends, of course, and then it just kind of grew from there, where I started helping, where I developed a practice where I help people worldwide just tap into their energy, into their lives, and transform their lives in ways that feel really good to them.
So you make that sound fairly easy. You started to realize that you were missing something you started to recognize your gifts. I don't think it's quite that easy, though, is it? Doesn't it take a lot of time and exploring?
It can. It's different for everybody. So for me, it took a lot of time in exploring because I was very analytical and really good at problem solving. And, I was one of those girls, give her a job, she's going to get it done. So to switch from a very analytical, linear process of understanding the world to a more intuitive, creative aspect of myself in order to operate in the world took some shifting. So it took a lot of questioning of thoughts and beliefs and paradigms and how I perceive the world and operate within the world. So yes, now for me, that was a process. It happened incrementally. It's still happening. It's still going on. I still open up and receive more. For some folks, it's a dramatic thing. So you talk about these people who have these big flashes of awakening, and it can happen for folks like that too. So it really depends on your own path, your own openness, your own readiness, and what spirit is ready for also.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that go into that, right?
And I know for me, I've studied coaching and I journal, and in fact, I've used your book for some journaling. We'll talk about that, but it's like I'll be going along thinking, okay, I've got this. And then boom, life's going to send me another opportunity to learn a lesson again. Like, well, I've already got this lesson. But that's kind of the way it works, isn't it?
Yeah. So how I like to frame that up is that, so we kind of like get our bearings, right? So it's kind of like learning to surf when you finally get on the wave and you're standing on the surfboard and you think, oh my God, I've got this. And now I'm an excellent surfer. And then, and then eventually the wave falls off or you fall off or you kind of got to get back on your board, paddle out and catch the next wave. And that's kind of how life is. So it'll kind of throw you some waves and you'll knock your own self off the board because you're not paying attention sometimes. And, there's lots of different ways. But I don't frame it up as lessons anymore, because that
Mm,
makes that is the perception of being incomplete, or something needs fixing, or you're broken in some way, you're not whole. And what I really like for my clients to understand is that you're already whole. And so when something feels a little out of whack, it's just that there's a belief structure or a paradigm in your energy field that is ready to break free into something more. So, as a soul and as a spirit, you're growing, you're expanding, you're expanding, you're expanding. And some of your old thoughts and beliefs hold you back. And they served you well at one point, or you wouldn't have kept them. But now you're in a place where you're ready to break free of some of that. And sometimes that's a little easier if it's a little bitty belief that's not a big deal. And sometimes it's a little harder if you're clinging to it a little more.
yeah,
So yeah, so that's kind of how I like to frame it up. It's always about more freedom, more expansion,
mm,
more openness, and whether you allow that or not.
that's that's interesting. I like that reframing of it, that we're already
Makes it a little
whole.
easier. Yeah, you're already whole.
Yeah, yeah. So, Michelle, your website says that you are an empath and an intuitive, and your Facebook page calls you an intuitive seer. Can you explain what those different terms mean?
Yeah, so it's me trying to use English words to describe something that's beyond language, right? So anytime you talk about spirit or your soul or source or God, whatever um, frame of references we use to try to tag those things is always inadequate. So I can tell you a little bit about myself. So as an empath, what that means is not only am I sensitive to people's feelings, meaning I can tell if someone's grieving or sad or happy or any of those things. Lots of us are sensitive and attuned to other folks. As an empath, I can feel that in my body, so I can take on somebody's sadness, which is great in a session, because then I know how that feels. I know why you're sad. I can help you maneuver around that and see through it. Um, for those walking empaths out there that are like bombarded by other people's emotions, it can be a little overwhelming if you don't know um, how to know what's yours and what's not yours.
Mm,
Because the only stuff you have to deal with is yours. If it's not yours, you can just let it pass through your energy field, and drift out the other side without having to take responsibility for it or fix it or do anything with it. If it's yours, of course, then that's when you want to be aware of it. So as an empath, that's what I do. I can feel other people's stuff, if you will. And then as an intuitive, what that means for me, how I get a lot of my intuitive messages is I know things without really having to make the logical jump from A to B to C to D. I just go from A to D and
mm,
know things. That also means that as an intuitive seer, I see a lot of things, so I can see potentials and possibilities for folks. I can see what's blocking them, what patterns are not serving them anymore. I just sense into all of that. And it's also a big umbrella, because I have the ability to do other things like tap into energy beings and folks who have passed away and all of those good things. That's not always specifically what I do, so I don't reference myself as the medium or even a channel, even though those things happen. When you kind of open up to spirit, lots of things are possible. So the framework I like to use is intuitive seer, because most people kind of understand what intuition is, even if they're not super familiar with it. And they understand that they also have a bit of it themselves, even though maybe they're not utilizing it. So it's something that's easier for folks to kind of grasp onto, if that makes sense.
yeah. So that's a lot. So, I mean, there were so many things I'm thinking about as an empath. I think you're right. A lot of us are sensitive to things. And I think a lot of us have built up barriers to that sensitivity because it can get overwhelming and we don't know how to let it go, right? We take it on. So I'm wondering how, after a session with somebody, if you've really tuned into that and you've taken that on, that draining for you, or do you have a way to just release that?
Yeah, so no, it's not draining for me. sometimes it can, so when you open up into the energetic world, and all you're doing is really just, all I'm doing is expanding my awareness. So I'm taking it from just a purely what we operate in, kind of a physical um, uh, experience, and I'm expanding that awareness in order to see energetically patterns or beings, or some people will call them dimensions, possibilities. So when I decide, when I'm finished with a client, it's easy for me to almost like unplug from them, if you will,
Mhm.
and allow them to go with their knowing and wisdom that they've gleaned, and then allow myself to just be me. So it's like I'll just kind of call all my energy back into me, all my little feelers that I've had out, and just have it all come back into me and disconnect from the other person.
Hmm.
So all of us can use those same tools, and I even suggest to a lot of my clients that they do, because just like this morning, how we've all been doing lots of things before we hopped on this call together. You had maybe kids or bosses or spouses or whatever it is that's been calling to you. So if, the people that are listening, they can probably relate to, oh, I have all my energy. It's kind of scattered out about me. Um, and if you just silently, quietly close your eyes and recenter yourself and just ask for all of your energy to just return, you don't even have to know where it's been. You'll just feel it almost like coalescing within your energy field.
Hmm.
So it's very helpful for folks when they feel scattered, or they're feeling anxious, or they're worried about something, to just call their energy back to them, because we don't often realize we've got our feelers out checking on lots of folks. Um, and another thing that folks can do that might be helpful is I will also ask everybody who's in my head to get out of my head. So, and that can be your boss, your spouse, your kids, whoever, um, because we carry them around with us. Like it could be your third grade teacher who said you weren't a good writer. Whoever it is, you're still carried around, and you don't even always have to know who that is either. But you can just ask them, like, "Hey, I'm just ready to vacate can you vacate my space? Can you vacate my headspace?"
Huh.
And they will just, that, because a lot of times they don't even know they're doing it either, and that will just naturally, you'll notice that your own nervous system calms. It just will soothe itself when you ask everyone else to come, just leave your energy field. And a lot of us don't realize what it feels like to be fully whole energetically, not to be scattered and not to have everybody else crowding our space, but to just be us. It's really refreshing.
So when we're thinking about our kids or our spouse or our partners or our parents or whatever, what you're saying is they're taking up space using our energy in our heads, which could be creating some of our anxiety. And by just simply deep breath and saying, would you please let me be by myself for a little while, that will release that.
Yeah, so it'll release a
Huh.
lot of it, and
Hmm.
it also will release that pulling back your own energy too. So what happens is we don't realize how powerful we are. We think we don't have a lot of control over where our thoughts are going, or what we're thinking about, or someone's circumstance, when you actually do. And what that's doing energetically, when you ask for your own energy to come back, when you ask everyone else to vacate, is you're really becoming present in the here and now. Because most of the time, those folks aren't there. They're not sitting in your living room with you. They're not
Right.
in my office with me right now, right? So it's just that we've given our energy away that we didn't necessarily even realize we were doing. So that will just help you come back into the present moment, where you can then shift to decide how you want to be next.
Yeah, as Susan says, I'm going to start doing this today. It's much needed. I'm going to start doing this today too, because I am constantly thinking about somebody else.
Yes, it's a great thing to do. I like to do it in the mornings. I'll do it a few times throughout the day. And anytime I kind of notice I'm a little out of whack, it's usually because I'm scattered, right? So if I'll just bring that back. And a lot of folks out there who are natural empaths or sensitives, they're always doing this. They're always checking on folks. They're always taking the temperature of the room. They always kind of have a bead on everyone else. And
Mhm.
if you'll just bring that back to yourself, you will just feel calmer and more centered and more grounded. That's a word a lot of people will use.
I like that. Kathy asks, is this energy renewable? I'm not sure. Do you understand what she might mean by that?
So maybe she could clarify just a little bit. So there's everything is energy, and energy is always transforming. So just like, an ice cube goes from ice to water to gas, but it's still the molecules of water, right? So um, energy changes like that all the time. So anytime someone is not feeling refreshed, um, it just means that they've depleted their own source of energy. And that's just when you have to really take time out for yourself and notice, have I overextended myself? Have I been too busy? I mean, all those things that we're taught about self-care also apply to our energy. So a lot of times that's just, I noticed that it can be easy to replenish my energy. I could just sit in my chair and stare out the window for a few minutes, and just something about looking at nature, just the shrubs outside my window will naturally calm me, will naturally bring me back to my center, because you are energy. So it's not like it can really go away. It's just that we get so distracted with all the other things that we just forget to tune into ourselves. And that's what you're missing more than anything, that connection to self.
So the dedication in your book, Michele, The Little Book of Big Knowing, it says, to all courageous souls who are taking the leap of faith to remember.
Mhm.
What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so a lot of folks will talk about enlightenment these days, or awakening, or things like that. But um, I operate under the premise that we are all eternal. So you existed before you came into this physical body. You'll exist after you leave this physical body. Um, and I'm very sure of that because I can contact a loved one who has passed from a physical body. So that essence is still there and still very interested in everything that's going on with their loved ones, or with life in general. So when I talk about remembering, what I talk about is remembering our fuller self, our whole self, which is not only this physical part of us, but also our soul part of us that remains a non-physical and kind of acts as a guide for us throughout our physical life. Um, and also, what I like to remind people is that because you're remembering your power, you're remembering your wholeness, you're remembering who you truly are, which is really this extension of source energy that's in a physical body right now. And so if we frame it up as remembering, then it's not that we're learning a lesson or trying to keep up or trying to fix anything or save anything or solve anything. We get out of those dense energies of problem solving and analytical, moving from point A to point B, to just relaxing into all that we are. It's a relaxing into the bigness of who we are. And we just happen to have part of us in a body this time around. So it's a remembering. Um, that's the gentlest way I can frame it up for folks.
I love the way you said that. That's a beautiful term. And to
Sure.
know that, it is eternal. Energy cannot be destroyed. So it just
Right.
keeps going on. This is who we
Right.
are now.
Right.
Kathy asked if you could talk about the risk of burnout and overwhelm, and how does one heal from these exhausting conditions, work, life, elder care, etc.
Yeah, so burnout and overwhelm is when you've extended too much energy in some form or fashion, that you are that you resent giving.
Oh.
So so when our cup is running over and we're giving because it's easy to give, our energy is high, it's exuberant, it's excited, we feel full, it's easy to give from that place. But when we give when we really don't want to, but we think we should,
Mhm.
anytime you think you should do something, that is like big neon sign saying, stop, wait, let's think about this. Because A should is never a true desire, a heart desire, or a soul desire. So when you think you should do something, that's a big stop sign saying, wait a minute, we got to rethink this. Is that true? And then asking yourself if it really is true that you should do this, that you have to do this. Some people would call that setting boundaries. I'm not a huge fan of boundaries because all our energy is the same, right? You're me, I'm you. It's kind of a bigger context there. So I'm not a huge fan of setting boundaries, but it's just knowing what you really want and making what you really want okay. So if you're in burnout and overwhelm, all you've done is given away too much of your energy, whether that be in time or money or attention, however it's been framed up for you, and then noticing that you really don't want to do that, and then making it okay that you don't do that. And so a lot of us, especially women, will overgive because we think it's expected of us. It's kind of part of a feminine culture that we're growing up in. Well, that's not true. And it's not true for you when you're experiencing overwhelm and burnout. And you have to be okay, and you have to love yourself enough to tell everybody else no when you want to.
And that is hard, particularly for women. We're getting some really great questions in. To go back to remembering, Susan says, and it's language, so is it remembering, not evolving?
So okay. All right, so I'm going to try. All right, see, it's a great question, Susan. I love it. These are the kind of questions I love. I'm going to try to break it down as simply as possible. So my sense about this is that we are expanding. So your soul, the eternal part of you, has all of these experiences. Sometimes they're physical, sometimes they're not. Your soul is very expansive, very curious, very full of wonder, wants to explore lots of things, like a big adventurer. So it comes into these physical bodies and gleans the experiences of these physical bodies, and then basically absorbs that experience, if you will, and expands, keeps expanding. But and we also expand as we have these experiences, spiritual awakening, physical, whatever it happens to be. But so yes, so you are evolving, you are expanding, but you're also remembering the human is remembering who you really are, that you're not just this. So you're not just a human evolving. You're not a human trying to catch up. You're not a human trying to raise your level of consciousness. You are way more than that. It's like you're the pinpoint of you're the pinnacle, right? That happens to be physical, but you have all of this that is you too. So yes, you're going to expand, you're going to evolve, you're going to change because that's what energy does. But where as humans we are right now, it's an embracing all of this, not just the human part. So yes, it's both, if that makes sense, Susan.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great explanation.
Yeah.
I have another question for you. Christina asks, is it normal to feel drained after being around so many emotions and feelings from other people?
Yes,
Christina is much of an empath.
Yes, so it can be, Christina. And what happens is, and this has happened to me all the time too. So I feel it. And it can happen not only like in, it can happen at like a cocktail party, or it can happen at a dinner party, or it can happen at big venues like concerts, and they are sporting events. And I used to remember I would tell my husband, I'm fine as long as everyone has an assigned seat. So I can go to a concert, I can't go to a festival. I can go to, it was weird how I used to think of it because I thought it was all about the organization part of it. But what I was learning is that, and this might be happening to you too, Christina, is that I was feeling all of these different, not only their emotions, but their thoughts and their anxieties. And even if someone's worried, like it's happened to me in airports a lot because people are nervous about flying and they're anxious about missing their flights and they're wondering if they've forgotten something and they're hurrying through TSA. And I could just, oh my gosh, an airport would just unnerve me. So But what I'd have to do is I began to recognize what was mine and what was theirs. And initially, what you might do, Christina, is you'll realize, okay, I'm feeling all this anxiety. So we'll use the airport because that's an easy one. I'm feeling all this anxiety. I'm feeling all this tension, this worry, this kind of chaos. So, number one, you recognize it. Number two, you ask, is it mine or is it someone else's? And a lot of times you'll just know, oh, this is someone else's. And if it's someone else's, Christina, you can just let it pass through your energy atmosphere, if you will, just like a storm cloud would, right? It'll just pass through. Now, sometimes we catch it too late. And what I would notice, for example, the airport thing is I would feel all the anxiousness, I would feel all the worry, and I would feel that in my body, and then I would attach my own thought to it. I would attach my own story to it, and I would think, oh my gosh, we got to hurry, we got to get to the boarding gate because we don't want to be late. Because that's
Right.
my trigger. I don't want to be late.
Right.
So I would personalize it without it even having been my stuff. I was taking on somebody else's stuff. So that's how we take on somebody else's stuff. We personalize it. We make it ours. So if you don't make it yours, if you realize, oh, wait, okay, I'm feeling something. Wait, is that mine? Have I personalized it yet? Is that somebody else's? And you'll get so good at it, it will just take seconds and you can do it in your
Wow.
head. So it doesn't have to be a big hairy deal. If it's not yours, let it pass through. You're going to take the hit. You're going to take the energy hit. You're going to feel the anxiety. You're going to feel the closedness in your chest. You're going to feel your breath get a little shallow. You're going to feel the physical things, but then just let it pass. And within like 30 to 90 seconds, it'll go away. If it's yours, if you've already made it yours and you're worried about being late to the gate, then you got to be like, okay, am I really going to be late? Then you got to do your work. You got to talk to your own story and release your own trigger. So yeah, so you can get good at it though. And the first step is saying, is it mine or is it someone else's?
Is it mine or is it theirs?
Yeah.
Wow.
And if it's theirs, you can just let them have it. It's like smelling someone else's perfume. You don't have to wear it yourself. You don't have to make it a big hairy deal. You can just smell it and let it go on. So
I'm going to try that too. Wow. That's,
yeah.
I never thought about that. When I start feeling anxious, I make up my story and I know what it is. It's all about my story.
Sure. And I can do it too. If I'm not in the present moment and if I'm all of a sudden like gotten too far down that path, I can personalize it. And then I'll be like, wait a minute, I was having a great day. Why all of a sudden am I pissed off? Well, because I've made something else mine, right? And then you'll add your story to it. But you don't want to do that because what you're doing is then you're adding to the energy of whatever that feeling is. You're adding your own stuff to that for the next person. So just take responsibility for your own stuff. Let someone else take responsibility for theirs. And it makes it a lot easier.
That's cool. I think this is a great time to talk about one of the insights in your book. I told you that I'm using this to journal. Like, I'll read a few pages and then something will speak to me and I'll be like, oh, I got to write about that one. And I love the, the prompts, the journaling about it. But this one I think is perfect for kind of what we're talking about. It's called Lighten Up Already. And it says, try not to take life too seriously. Enlightenment is all about lightening up. Face life with a twinkle in your eye and a smile in your heart. Let life surprise and delight you. Enjoy it, my friends. Yes. So, I think, and like I said to you when we were waiting to come on, I've always loved the saying, angels have wings because they take themselves lightly. So I think it's a nice reminder.
Yeah, and I keep that reminder all over. So I have it on my wall in my office. I have it in my bathroom when I get ready in the mornings, because lightening up, when we feel good in a physical body, your level of consciousness naturally raises. And when your level of consciousness naturally raises, then you can see potentials and possibilities and synchronicities and miracles that are out there. So, but when we are in a denser, more problem-solving, more analytical, physical mode, it's like those levels of consciousness don't even exist because we're so dialed in. So when we lighten up and we take ourselves, a little more lightly, and we laugh at ourselves and we enjoy a good joke and we don't take life so seriously, it just naturally raises your level of consciousness. And those people feel good to be around.
They
So if
do.
you've ever had a friend or something, or you walk into like the cleaners or something, and that person's just always like, "Hey," I mean, love seeing that person,
Right.
and that energy is contagious. And so, yeah, if you just really ask yourself, like, do I really need to be that serious about this? Do I really need to be that heavy about it? Like, those vibrations are very dense and will make things feel very fixed and harder to see around, uh, let the energy change, really.
So there's lots of questions we're asking ourselves. We're like, is this mine or is it theirs? Do I really need to take this so seriously? Is this, can I let this go? Whose energy am I taking on? Please leave my head. Get out of my
Yeah,
head.
so questions are like the best way. It's one of the best ways to open yourself up. It's one of the best ways to check beliefs that you may want to keep or you may not want to keep. And so the more we just check in with ourselves, and that's just really knowing who we are. And so if we're just assuming, or if we're just going on autopilot and not kind of checking in with ourselves all the time, then we can't um, navigate exactly where we want to go.
Yeah. So, Susan, I'll get to your question in a second because I wanted to read one other thing here that is in your book, and that is say what. So it's believing you can't have something is the same thing as not wanting it. Your belief that it's not possible makes it impossible for you to experience it. If you want something, believe that it's already here. Stop wanting, start knowing that it's a done deal. So when I read this one, Michele, I wrote in my journal, I just started to write about it a little bit. And then I started to really visualize, so this is what's happening with Hey Boomer, and we're doing these great workshops and we're building this community. And I mean, I was trying to make it as vivid as possible. Is that what you meant by that?
Yes. So, oh gosh, I have lots of things to say about that. So Wendy, so I love that you're doing that. That's fantastic. So, okay, I'm trying to think about where to begin. So, anytime you want something and it's not yet in your experience, what you then have to do is expand out into the energy realm, which you use your imagination and visualization to make that happen, right? So what you're doing is you're dreaming, basically. And we did this as kids all the time. We would pretend to be nurses or doctors or firefighters or astronauts or whatever we thought we wanted to be, because energetically those potentials and possibilities out there exist, and you wouldn't be able to tap into them if that energy wasn't already there in potentials and possibilities. Now what happens is, as you continue to play with your imagination and visualize and dream and make it fun, that's the key. When you start to get into problems like, how am I going to make this work, the big how, that's gonna stick a stick in the wheel. Okay, so
Right.
stop everything. So you just want to be fun about it. You want to play with it. You want to have your visualization time as long as it feels fun. And as soon as you start to notice that you're starting to feel like making it happen, then you just want to break for the day. Um, so what I really want to say about this is that energy out there is potentials and possibilities. And your soul self knows exactly how to, your path of least resistance to get you to a version of that. So hold your vision, let it be as specific as you want it to be, as long as it feels fun.
Mm-hmm.
And use that vision that you're having almost as like a touchstone. So don't demand of the universe that it come exactly in that form,
Mm.
because throughout your life you've been putting all these requests in. I want to be happy, I want to be free, I want to have a partner, I want to have abundance, you have all these different things that are like kind of mixing in the pile. And so as you live that life, your soul knows what best will kind of answer all of those different things you've been asking for. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as you allow yourself to be led in that direction and follow the energy and follow the lightness of it, it may not manifest in the exact way you thought it would, but most of the time, it's way better than you could have dreamed. I
Mm.
believe Oprah even says, God always dreams a bigger dream for us than we can for ourselves. And that's what
Ah,
she's alluding to, is that these potentials and possibilities kind of they congregate, they coalesce, and they pop into our realities in a way that might not be exactly like your visualization, but it meets all the essences, all the energy essences of that visualization, if that makes sense.
yes, I love that. And I love that you're saying make it fun and
Yes,
step
yes.
away when you get trapped into the, well, how am I going to do this? And how am I going to do that? Because that's where we all get stuck, you know?
Yes. Yes,
I
me
mean,
too. And you wanna know how to make something happen. Well, that's not creation. And creation is really about letting the universe also do their part, like understanding that the universe has a role in helping you create. So you're not out here all by yourself making things happen and trying to push them into place or trying to figure out how to promote something or sell something or do something. I mean, we all get into that frame of mind sometimes. And what you're doing is pinching yourself off from all of the universe here to help you. So
yeah.
if you lighten up, if you feel good, if you open up to those potentials and possibilities, then that's how the universe can then drift in these physical helpers or these ideas or these inspirations that we get, that then we move on inspired action versus motivation.
Mm,
So it's
inspired action. I
it's
like
very
that.
it's like it has a different feel to it, and it will feel
Hmm.
like you're riding a wave of energy. Like anybody who's creative or an artist or a writer, you you ride a wave of creative energy, and then it kind of putters out, and then you wait for the next wave of energy to come. And so that's kind of how visualization and creativity can work, and the universe will be that energy you ride in on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Um, wow. Okay. So Susan asks, are the vibrations of some people more dense than others, or does the density change within each of us?
Yes, so there's a lot to unpack in that. Let me see if I can just make it boil it down. So we are all souls, okay? Or every single one of us, no matter who it is. So we're all eternal and we all come from that source energy. Now, as we get here into a physical body, what I've noticed is that some of us have chosen to play in certain playgrounds where we want to just experience a physicality. We really pinch ourselves off from all that is. Some of us stay open even as kids to all that is. Some folks don't ever pinch themselves off. Those are the greats. Those are the Dalai Lamas and the Buddhas and all those. So and then some of us have come to play in this continuum, right? Where sometimes we are really wanting to play. And denser does not mean bad. Let me make that clarify that. So when you're in 3D or when you feel something physically in a body, it's going to feel denser because the energy is just more compact to make a form. So it doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it feels thicker, if you will. And then sometimes, like creativity or inspiration, you're going to move out into these more expanded states that feel a little freer, a little, it can feel a little ethereal, if you will. And then, then sometimes you want to dial it back in order to bring it into form. So it's kind of this nice breathing process that we're doing. We're
Mhm.
going in and out and in and out and in and out.
Mhm. All right. Well, we are running out of time, even though there's a couple more questions here. So I always like to ask as the final question. Hey Boomer is, like I said in the beginning, it's about learning, it's about inspiration, it's about living life to the fullest for as long as we can. So, with that in mind, are there 2 or 3 takeaways that you would like to leave with the listeners today?
Oh, gosh. Well, yes, there are.
I know there's
But
12.
I know it. So the one thing I would like for everyone to um, just keep bringing back into the forefront of their minds to remind themselves of is that you are a soul. You are source energy in a physical body. So when you remember that, when you start to realize it and embody that, it makes this physical world and your relationships and your all the things out here easier, because you're remembering your own power, you're remembering your source of your power, you're understanding who you truly are, and you're not the lady in the mirror. You're so much more. So it makes everything else easier to accept. The aging body, the strange relationships, the growing kids, the change in jobs. It makes all of that feel very temporary and very okay, because you're way more than that. You're way, way more than that. So that's one thing I'd like for folks to remember. I'd also like for them to remember that their desires are really important. So some desires were not planted by you. Some were planted by your soul. And you don't know exactly why they're there, and you don't know exactly all the time exactly where it's going to lead. I didn't know my life was going to lead to this, I promise you. So, and you just have to pay attention to them, to allow them, to nurture them, to make those desires, no matter how weird they are, okay. There's a reason you have it, and you might not understand why you have it, because you might not have put it there yourself. That eternal part of you did. So if you'll just relax into, it's okay to want what I want, and it's okay to say yes to what I want, that will give you a lot of freedom, because then it makes it, when you really know what you want, even if you don't know exactly, some people don't always know exactly what they want, but they can feel this pull, they can feel this desire calling to them. It makes it easier to say no to the other things that don't feel like this. So it helps with clarity. And then finally, the last thing that I'd really want people to know is that you exist, and because you exist, you're valuable. And if you didn't exist, you wouldn't be valuable. And if you weren't valuable, you wouldn't exist. So because you're here, because you're energy, because you are eternal, you are so valuable to this whole. And it matters. You matter, you matter, you matter. And it's not what you do that matters, it's that you're here that matters. It's your beingness that matters. And so it matters that you feel good. It matters that you're happy. It matters that you feel alive. It matters. It really matters, because as when you understand that how you feel matters, what you believe matters, all of that just, it exudes out from you and it affects others. And you're not doing it to affect others, because it's you that matter. So it's tapping into knowing that, knowing your own value, not just as a person, but all that's behind you, all that energy that is you. It really matters. It's powerful. It is powerful when you know that. When you know that, and then you try to remind yourself to live from there. It matters. Powerful. Yeah. And it's because you know it, because it's because there's a part of piece of you in Wendy, and in each of your guests today, there's a piece of you that knows that is truth. And that's why it's moving. It's truth. And when you recognize truth, it makes you stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and listen to this several times. I think you have put so much useful, kind, loving, supportive information out. And I truly appreciate what you've shared with us today.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. It's been lovely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can I just answer one question? So I see Susan in the chat saying, why do I cry? Yeah. Why do I cry when I think of that? And that's because you're recognizing truth. And so you're releasing, Susan, all you're doing is you're releasing a structure, a belief, a paradigm that you kind of held closely in your energy field. And this just pierced that a little bit. And so it's truth that is pierced through that. And those are tears of joy. So it's all right that you're just releasing something as you recognize that truth.
Thanks, Michele.
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to remind everybody about our new sponsor, doTERRA Essential Oils, and Heidi Woody, who is the health and wellness advocate for them. You can text her at 864-238-8120, and she will get back to you just as soon as she can. I truly have found the products very useful. And next week, totally different show. Next week, my guest is an attorney named Anna Byrne. She's an attorney and a financial advisor from Massachusetts, and she became a widow at 28. And she has since written 2 books, The Widow's Guide and The Inheritor's Guide. And those are to help guide people through all the legal steps following the loss of a loved one, which that can be overwhelming. All the things you have to think about and do and prepare for. We'll talk primarily about the Inheritor's Guide because that's very relevant to me in the coming years, hopefully, Mom, in the coming years. But I think it's going to be a very useful and informative show. So I hope that you will all join in for that. And thank you all for tuning in today. I'm so grateful how much you all got from this show. And I know your time is valuable, and it just fills my heart with joy when I feel like this has been a valuable experience for y'all too. Please look for Michelle's books on her website and join her on her Facebook page. I shared those links a few times during the show, and they're also in the comments. So if you need to find them there, please tell your friends about Hey Boomer. Encourage them to listen to us live. If they can't listen live, all of the shows are recorded and available on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And they are also uploaded. The audio is uploaded to the various podcast channels. So you can find Hey Boomer just about anywhere and listen to this again. So I'm changing up the ending too. Instead of saying what I always used to say, I'm saying that I am learning to live my life the best way that I can for as long as I can. And I'm learning from Michele to kind of open the space for that a little bit more. So thank you for that, Michele.
You're welcome.
Join me next week. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boomer.